Marvin Jositis, Ph.D., was born into a Catholic family in Detroit, December 27, 1941. He prepared for the priesthood for 12 years at a high school seminary, college seminary, and theological seminary. After 2 years as a priest, he resigned on philosophical basis. He completed master degrees in counseling and religious studies, and concluded with a doctorate from the Michigan University. His careers have spanned 6 years as a community college professor, 7 years in human resources and medical education for the Ford Motor Company, 7 years as a human resources executive for Massey Ferguson in the USA, Canada, and the UK, and 10 years as a vice president for LaForge Corporation in Canada and USA. He retired early in 1998 to pursue his passions: professional piano playing, graduate school teaching, hospice volunteering, and real estate sales. Marvin married Donna Marie Reimer on March 25, 1970. 16 moves later throughout Michigan, Ontario, England, Virginia, and West Virginia, their lives still center around the most important: family. 2 daughters, 1 son, their 3 significant others, 2 granddaughters, and 4 grandsons form the heritage inherited from immigrants and hard-working ancestors, for which they are grateful and proud. His book, Pennies from a Heaven: The Joy of Making Family, published December 13, 2011, is a personal memoir with enduring purpose and meaning. Be prepared to laugh, to cry, and to reminisce as Marvin Jositis traces the making of his family through several generations. Jositis masterfully and creatively weaves reality through a clever kaleidoscope of life. You will find yourself inserting your own family experiences through his bigger-than-life real characters and narrative. This book speaks to the heart of those who continue to make family in their later years, but, more importantly, this book inspires and challenges its readers who are at the early stages of making their marriage and family to notice the pennies, real and symbolic, and other gifts around them as they create the wonder and beauty of life's most enduring reality: family. The following excerpt is from Pennies from a Heaven by Marvin Jositis. Kaleidoscopes are unique toys. Sir David Brewster invented them in 1816 while he was conducting experiments on the polarization of light. I was fascinated as a boy with this toy. I still am. Tubes, mirrors, loose-colored objects tumbling in arbitrary patterns, changing refractions. Simply beautiful. Kaleidoscope, a fascinating word from the Greek kalos, beautiful, and eidos, shape, and scopio, to look at or examine. Kaleidoscope, looking at beautiful forms. I have realized for some time now that one's life, my life, is really a kaleidoscope. My waking hours and my dreams constantly flow from one to another in splendid kaleidoscopic forms, blending current reality and experience with reminiscences and past memory. And my mind twists each beautiful moment into the ever-present. Past becomes a new present, making me the sum total of my experiences in its ebb and flow with the now. The future is only what I meld between past and present going forward. And so it goes on as I turn the kaleidoscope. Flashes of events past become who I am today. Constant flashes of memory mixed with new current lights intermingle, revitalizing who I have been into an ever-shaping refractive who I am. Flash. Flash 1. During my sophomoric teenage period, I would laugh at my mother as we walked to the store. We had only one car, which my father took to work, but it didn't matter. With a car or not, our walks were moments of experiencing one another as well as the world about. I loved it. But there was Mom, always looking down as we walked, looking always for pennies or the stray coin that had fallen from a previous traveler. I would laugh as she paused our conversation and pace to stoop down and pick it up. A mere penny. "Mom, don't bother," I chuckled. "It's only a penny. And pennies are almost becoming a meaningless symbol of the past. They are nearly worthless. In fact, I think that the dime should become the least valuable coin in the realm." I puffed my chest with sophomoric pride. With a tonality signaling a mixture of frustration and patient anger, she would burst forth, "Never forget, Marvin, that pennies make dollars. You may think it foolish now, but never forget." And so the moment would pass until our next walk punctuated with the same dialogue at some point when the conversation and the pace paused to retrieve the copper treasure lying in wait. Strange how often I now remember these moments past brought into my present state of consciousness. As a man, my mother continued to ask me if I found any pennies that day. I would chuckle and respond as I had on our walks. She would remind me again, using her same words. My mother died on December 13th, 1994, just before her favorite time of year, Christmas. Favorite because as a girl with little financial wealth, she had the riches of a beautiful, caring family. As the youngest of 9, actually 11, but 2 brothers had died, an older brother, Humphrey, brought her an artificial cardboard Christmas tree with real candles. She would watch the candles until they had to be extinguished, and she would dream of worlds far beyond her reach. Her mother, my Mimi, French-Canadian for grandmother, had become a widow in her early 50s and now raised the 6 unmarried children by cleaning homes for the wealthy car scions of Grosse Pointe, Michigan. So, pennies were the sovereigns that indeed became dollars. And there I sat in a restaurant having a bit of breakfast, taking a break from sitting with my dying comatose mother, readying to return to the hospital room for the last moments. "I'll be home for Christmas" was being crooned in the background as tears flowed down my cheeks. How often I remember it. And when I got up to pay my bill, I caught the glimmer of a penny, a bright penny on the floor. As I paused and stooped down, I thought of my mother, who probably in some way was thinking of me, perhaps with the same kaleidoscope of dreams and memories, creating her last beautiful earthly memories of our walks together, when we had only each other and the mystery of the treasures awaiting our journey. During the past 16 years, I would not be able to recount how many pennies and other coins have entered my world by merely focusing on the pavement below. And they have emerged at the strangest, often troubling moments of that period in my life. Very difficult moments sometimes were graced with several pennies. I would even find them in old drawers or in parking spots where for no reason I parked. And there they were, waiting for me, reminding me of a dear love and her chiding me never to forget. After I shared this story with my spouse and children, each of them has stumbled upon a penny frequently, usually when they need some sign that all is right with their worlds. My child, who has had the most difficult times, finds the most and gives a moment of thanks to her Mimi. Mom seems to always be home for Christmas, even in July. The following endorsement of Breaking Grand Silence by Marvin Jositis was stated by Thomas J. Gumbleton, retired Auxiliary Bishop of the Catholic Archdiocese of Detroit. Marvin Jositis shares his life and story of following the truth and finding that, indeed, the truth will make you free. His moving story and its incredible events make a powerful call to the whole Church to begin that journey back to the radical truth of Jesus once more. This is Chapter 15 of Breaking Grand Silence by Marvin Jositis. Resigning from the priesthood. Besides the crucifixion of my idealism that came from the majority of laity opposed to paradigmatic change within, the final leg of my idealistic shattering came from the hands of the clergy, exceptions being my 2 close but slightly older priest associates in the neighboring parishes of the same town, and from the Archbishop himself. Throughout my life, a preeminence of principle, logically reasoned principle as well as intuitively resolved principle, always had been paramount. During my theological studies, which included 1 year as an ordained deacon working in parishes, I began to experience a clergy that was unfaithful to these ideals, men who lived a double standard. There was the pastor, who made advances on altar boys, and, believe it or not, a pastor who physically examined young couples seeking marriage to make sure that they were definitely male and female. How he got away with this baffled another priest friend and I, who were in disbelief at the unquestioning trust and blind faith innocent people willingly placed in their priests. 16 months after ordination, I attended a retreat with 30 other priests. I was shocked to discover that only 1 other priest there was happy remaining in the priesthood. Personally, I wasn't letting my frustrations get the better of me. I was still truly happy, although challenged beyond belief. 28 of the 30 admitted that, if they were younger and knew what to do with their lives, they would leave the priesthood. This was crushing to my idealism. So too was the awareness openly discussed at the retreat that a few priests also had extramarital affairs, secretive and regular consorts or dates, dual standard vacations where anything went, closet homosexual behaviors and encounters, or other convenient relationships. One priest at the retreat eventually suffered the ignominy of death at the hands of his homosexual prey. 2 priests in attendance offered to set me up with a list of safe restaurants and other places where I could go to experience the reality of life. While these priests lived a lie under anybody's assessment, nonetheless they seemed to have convinced themselves that their behaviors were justified. I became aware of other priests who politicked to get plum parishes where their income could escalate immensely and plum assignments for self-aggrandizement. Many priests became administrators rather than shepherds. Some became brick-and-mortar aces. Others drank alcohol unbelievably. Gatherings of priests, even around religious events, were evenings of the best scotch and the braggadocious about their prowess and wealth. Many were heavy drinkers, some alcoholics. I saw trapped older priests wanting out but not having the paradigmatic framework that permitted them that freedom. And the Archbishop, as much a giant theologically and liturgically that he was in the Vatican II movement, was not able to go on any farther than he did to encourage change. Like many bishops even up to the present, he resigned problem priests to less populated areas. By doing so, he continued to protect the illness within the clergy rather than decidedly addressing the anomalies head-on. Probably a victim of Roman politics of the possible, he told a meeting of over 100 of us priests in early 1969 that certain church teachings, such as those on artificial contraception and indulgences, had to be publicly upheld, but what we did to support individual conscience privately, especially in confessional, was our choice. As much as I admired the man who ordained me, when I met him in 1969 to tell him of my decision to resign, he offered to reassign me anywhere, even to a university where my ideas and beliefs would reach a receptive, enlightened audience. On the face of it, this was a remarkable offer, an open offer. At the time, I pointed out to him my theological and moral dilemma. I clicked off my reasons for resigning, which did not include celibacy per se, since I didn't leave the priesthood specifically to marry, but did include his failure to stand up and be counted on major issues being debated. I told him that he was being hypocritical in letting the front-line priests work things out in the privacy of the confessional. I even went so far to indicate that he was hypocritical in reassigning people like me to live in forums, where a small group could experiment with new ideas and practices off the beaten track, while he upheld publicly the outmoded belief systems and policies of a Roman curia. I told him that he was being, in all due respect, intellectually dishonest in pretending to look the other way, even protecting the sexual misbehavior of many of his priests. Later, the Archbishop's personal priest secretary told me that I shouldn't have told the Archbishop that he was intellectually dishonest. It hurt him. I considered it tough love.